Hi, everyone. In my role as a cybersecurity analyst at ESG, I've been paying close attention to what solutions are in the marketplace to help organizations with threat detection and response. And as such, I've been looking closely at the XDR movement that has evolved over the last couple of years. And in fact, I've been working closely with Trend Micro to help watch the progress of that space, understand what buyer expectations are, and as people begin to adopt solutions in the XDR space to help quantify the results of those solution sets. And so in doing so, I've executed a number of research studies over the last 12 months. And I wanted to just share a little bit about what those were all about. In the early part of 2020, working together with Trend Micro, I took a close look at what the challenges were in the Security Operations Center that are associated with threat detection and response, and put together a benchmark model to understand which companies were most effective, what the characteristics of those companies were, what kind of tools and operations and processes they were utilizing as well, and then took a look at how they were adopting and utilize an XDR approach to solve those problems. We also took a look at quantifying the results of those organizations to try to get a sense for how much value really exists, both in terms of security efficacy and the efficiencies associated with XDR for those companies who are utilizing XDR approaches. And then later last year in the fall, I executed another research study, this one a little more broadly, looking at how much support there was for the XDR movement in the industry at large, taking a look at what people's plans are and progress associated with those plans, as well as they go out and begin to invest in XDR type solution sets, and also what their implementation strategies look like that were associated with that. My goal for that was to look for emerging trends and to learn from those organizations that were basically first movers in the utilization of that technology. And then most recently in the winter this year, we took a hard look at Trend Micro Vision 1 specifically. And we talked to a number of customers that were adopting and utilizing the technology, and specifically looked at measuring the value that those organizations were achieving as they were using Vision 1 XDR in their infrastructure. So I'm going to share data and information from multiple pieces of this research, from a little bit from the spring research, a little bit from the fall, but I really want to center in on the value that organizations have seen from Trend Micro Vision 1. I'll start by just validating some of the pain points that bubbled up to the top as we looked at what people were struggling with in the Security Operations Center. And if you're listening to this this session, then you're likely experiencing these challenges as well. Of course, our attack surfaces in most every company have expanded quite dramatically or changed a lot, certainly in the last 12 months. In addition to the change for the remote worker, we've also seen continued acceleration of cloud workloads, continued movement of the diversity of devices as organizations invest in IoT type technologies. And so the attack surface itself has been shifting and changing a tremendous amount, which of course requires new approaches to security controls in all those environments. At the same time, of course, we continue to experiencing growing complexity in the actual threat landscape itself. That's not a new trend, of course, but certainly one that was exploited heavily, as we all know, over the last 12 months. As things changed so rapidly, so did the type of attacks and the threats that were coming at us, much so in very targeted, advanced threat way. Along with that, because we've deployed so many different security controls, we continue to grow more silos of security data. And I feel like I've been saying that now for several years, because it's actually been the case. As we implement more and more controls, we have more security data in our infrastructure. But no shortage of telemetry for the security operations teams to review and analyze and investigate with. But it's been a very overwhelming amounts of that data that's emerged as such. Of course, the cybersecurity skills challenge still it plagues us all, and some of us are trying to by hiring managed services to come in and supplement our resources. Others of us have been just aggressively recruiting, but we're all caught short of the kind of resources that we need, which makes it a big problem because of the amount of alerts that all these security controls are sending our way. And most organizations are struggling to sort of get through those as part of their daily operational process. So as we talk to organizations and we ask them what are the most effective tools they've been using for threat detection and response, SIEM, no surprise, bubbled to the top. People felt like for the tools in their toolbox, SIEM was the best that they have as of today. But at the same time, people were very upfront that they were a number of issues that were associated with the use of the SIEM. And 57% of organizations said, yes, my SIEM's a good tool, but I struggle with a lot of things involved in it. Much of those challenges had to do with the noisiness of the SIEM itself. Many complained about the amount of specialized resources that were required to operate it, and that their more junior staff had some difficulties utilizing or getting value out of the SIEM. And a very large percentage of people also complained about the cost of their SIEM as they ingested more and more data as well. 58% said that they could see room for improvement in the data ingest process, and organizations said that they would continue to invest both people time and technology in building the data ingest process as new security controls and things took place in that environment along the way. And then integrating with the rest of their infrastructure as well was an ongoing cost and a challenge for most organizations. Thus, over 90% of the people we surveyed were very interested in what XDR could do, and as such have set aside budget to go out and take a look at XDR and potentially invest in it as a supplement to their SIEM, while many people also said that they would want to replace their SIEM as part of the process over time. So when we looked at what the real benefits were that were associated with XDR, we saw that that those people that were utilizing an XDR approach in their organization said they had half as many successful attacks in their organization. So pretty dramatic efficacy results for those people that were seriously investing here. 60% said that that those attacks were less likely to repropagate again, which is great, which means that people were getting back to root cause and shutting down those attacks for the long haul. And then the third benefit is 2.2 times in particular, we're able to detect compromise in only a few days or less versus very long dwell times that were in existence for those people who were not utilizing an XDR approach in their organization. When we looked at quantifying the actual number of resources, those people that were using an automated XDR environment, people said that 8 full-time equivalent people would be needed to replace the automation that they have in place with XDR. And that's, of course, across all the components. So that includes the data analysis, data correlation, the investigation process, and the automated response process. So we took a very broad look at the people requirements that were associated with this. So pretty dramatic benefit there. So now let's get back to Trend Micro Vision 1 specifically. So this winter, we took a hard look at Vision 1. And we looked at the guided investigations process, the contextually aware response actions that were there. We looked at the visualization process across endpoint server cloud workloads, in particular the MITRE ATTACK framework mapping, and then the associated documentation that comes along with that. We looked at the communication and the visualization that was associated with attacks as it communicated with command and control, and to suss out lateral movement in the environment. And we also took a look at, from an integrations perspective, the SIEM and SOAR integrations as well. And to do that, we talked specifically to a number of Trend Micro customers, and we looked at 3 areas of value. So we call these the economic benefits. The first is around the security effectiveness. And so we looked at the sort of general efficacy of the solution in terms of increased security posture in general. And all of the customers that we spoke with said that they felt that their organizations were and had lowered the risk of security attacks and threats, both from having better visibility to what's happening in their environment, but also from a time to detect standpoint as well, because people could see things happening sooner and stop attacks in process, that we saw better detection. So both higher levels of detection and lower or a reduction in mean time to detect as well. And interesting, I added just a quote in here, and it said, the reduction in complexity of the process. So there's a complexity element as well, which translates into human-caused errors, which I thought was interesting. It's not actually a subject we dug into much in our core research, but because there were less human errors involved in the investigation process, that people felt that they had a better or faster detection and remediation time utilizing more of the automated capabilities. And we'll actually explore that in a little bit, because we are lucky enough to have a guest with us who was part of that conversation. In terms of business enablement, and think in this case, business operations, XDR helps eliminate the many silos of data that we utilize in the normal security operations process to analyze and investigate attacks. It helped us streamline the operations process as well, because now there's less ingest processing of all that data and synchronization processing that's associated with that data as well. And then people translated that into sort of lower risk overall, and that comes specifically from people's ability to invest in net new capabilities, so new functions, new partnerships, and other things, because people felt like they had a better handle on their security posture, that they were more willing to invest in net new capabilities for the organization, enabling the business to move forward more rapidly. So by lowering the risk, providing higher visibility, I'm okay investing in net new things in a more rapid pace. So that was just a terrific outcome from this as well. And then on the cost reduction side of the house, a number of areas specifically tied to cost. One around vendor and product consolidation. So this is taking multiple detection response tools, multiple analytics engines, rolling it into one common environment with Vision One. More efficient triage process. So that's literally translates into people time along the way. And then fewer successful attacks means less time spent remediating and incident response activities as well. And that those translated into very much into hard costs as well. And I brought with me a model that will sort of help demonstrate that a bit. So we took that cost translation data and we modeled it out here, and we saw that there's a 63% savings from what people were previously doing with a fully cobbled together manual plus some level of automated capabilities when they moved to Trend Micro Vision One. So that's a big number, almost 2/3 savings there. And then interestingly, for those organizations that engaged Trend Micro's managed XDR service as well, saw additional savings as part of the process. And I don't know if that's intuitive for everybody or not, because sometimes you think about, well, if I'm engaging in a service provider, that might actually translate into a higher cost. But as we looked closely at this, we saw that those people engaged in the managed XDR service from Trend Micro, they also saw a further cost reduction, so down to 79% savings overall between all the different characteristics that we tracked along the way. Okay, so enough about my research. Let's get real with the conversation. And I'm fortunate enough to have with me today Frank Bunton, 12-year veteran and vice president and CISO from MedImpact Healthcare. Frank was kind enough to share some of his experiences with us at ESG, so we could put together some of our economic impact assessment of what happened here. Frank, I'll start out by letting you introduce yourself a little bit more about MedImpact Healthcare, and then we'll get into some conversation about Trend Micro Vision One.
Hi, my name's Frank Bunton. I'm Vice President and Chief Information Security Officer at MedImpact Healthcare Corporation. I've been there quite a while, and I've been in the CISO role for 12 years now. MedImpact is a pharmacy benefit management group, and as such, we deal with a lot of issues in healthcare and the associated businesses that go around with that. And it's a busy world in healthcare today.
Boy, is it ever. Wow.
Yeah.
Healthcare is one of the industries that I focus on as well in my practice. And it's amazing to see, one, how vulnerable various healthcare organizations are, but just what a target healthcare is right now for the adversary.
Mm-hmm.
So great, Frank. So let's start with a really basic question. So in your role as the CISO of the organizations, what are some of the goals specifically in terms of adopting XDR and the Trend Micro Vision One platform?
In terms of goals, my team now provides services for both MedImpact and its subsidiaries. This has expanded our vision, so to speak, and has created problems, the primary of which is integration of remote security events into a single pane of glass. The XDR tool and the Vision One endpoint management tool assisted us with this by allowing that expansion to occur seamlessly within our environment.
So great. So can you just expand slightly on some of the, like, what were the pain points that caused you to engage in this, in looking at this product?
The basic pain point was the fact that we had endpoints, we had lots of them. We did not have a good endpoint management system. And when we first brought Trend Micro in, they solved the problem of the Monday morning blues, which is chasing malware down the network and losing that race, right? So once we saw that, as the product grew into both Apex One and then into the Vision One that now exists, as it expanded, we were able to take advantage of those features, including the XDR feature. And this allowed us to basically eliminate those types of problems. And in the event that you do get a problem that you need to review, the XDR basically takes that, gives you faster detection, faster response, and eliminates the packet captures or looking around through DNS log, and, et cetera, and turns that into something you can manage in a given amount of time, a short period of time, and improves your overall responsiveness to the business.
That's great, Frank. So, so I assume that you got time back to your analyst team. Now you're able to redeploy those analysts to do other things.
And that was required, right? Because with all the new subsidiaries, that task is daunting. Let me tell you, you run one company, try running a dozen. It's not easy.
I'll bet. Hey, so what do you think's different about the Trend Micro XDR approach than some of the other approaches you've seen in the marketplace?
The XDR tool is highly integrated with not only our current environment, but with the environments that we have deployed leading up to where we are now. And it provides very quick response, and it provides a more comprehensive overview of our infrastructure and our network interface, our firewalls. We can see so much information that has been gathered with regards to any type of incident that we respond to, that we can almost immediately make a deduction as to what's gone on, where's the problem, and we're able to see back to the source of the problem and solve it. And that's critical in this business because there just isn't much time to mess around.
That's great. And so I'll take from that you believe that Trend is doing just fundamentally a better job on putting the data together and delivering it to you in a way where you can understand what's happening.
Correct. It's basically the ability to take, if you work with networks, that data is pretty primitive, right? And it takes special people to basically be able to break it down. Their products do that for you, and allows your network engineers to do networking. It allows your security engineers to focus on the problem and remediate the issue, right? And that's critical. It's just important to have that. Trend's a great partner.
Yeah, I was still going to ask you about that. But you had said a couple of times in our earlier conversations that that was a special part of why you enjoy working with Trend and the solution. There's something special about Trend as a partner. Can you expand on that just for a bit?
I went to one of their bigger conferences in Vancouver a few years back, and Eva Chen presented there. And I was just astonished at some of the insights she has as to the customer, as to how to take care of the customer, how to make sure that the customer gets the service and the attention they need. And that has been passed down to her subordinates, her staff. And then that has gone all the way down to the support personnel at Trend. And the support personnel there are the best I've ever seen. The best I've ever seen. We never left hanging with those guys. So they are just a great partner. Wish I had a lot more like them. I could use them, I'll tell you.
That's fantastic. Frank, thank you so much for being candid with us about both your experiences with Trend Micro, who sounds like a terrific partner, and specifically about the impact of Vision One on your organization. I'll look forward to chatting more as you continue your journey and learning more about your experiences along the way. Yeah.
Sounds good, Dave. Always good talking to you.
Thank you so very much. All right, everyone, that concludes the conversation, at least for today. There's more information available from Trend Micro on the various research topics that we covered here today. So if you're looking for more information, reach out to Trend Micro.